Greetings scholars, Wormwood here. Riddle me this. Why is ding phonetic in da to hit? This was one of those questions I'd bug my teachers with when I was a bright-eyed young scholar. I was told not to worry about it and stop asking so many questions. But Wormwood-kun, don't roll like that. No siree, cause I'm undiagnosed and unmedicated, and while it took me a while, several years in fact, to find the answer, found an answer finally was, and the answer may surprise you. To find out when, how, and possibly why, let's do some etymology. The character currently known as da does not appear in Shovan Classic, which popped off the shelves in the 200s AD. It does, however, appear in the new edition published by the Xu brothers, that's a different Xu than Xushen by the way, in the Northern Song, some 1000 years after the original was penned by Xushen. Now, this doesn't mean that the word didn't exist before the Middle Ages, because the Xu brothers were giant nerds who went through ancient books like particularly voracious bookworms, adding characters to the Shovan that they found in other, slightly less ancient books, like the Book of Wei, compiled between 551 and 554 AD, which contains the earliest use of the character that we know of. Back then, the character was actually pronounced in late Old Chinese as teng, which lines up much better with the phonetic element ding. So what happened? Well, like with most kids, we can blame the parents for why they're so messed up. You see, scholars, Xushen's original Shovan does list two other characters, the union of which, presumably over a wild rice wine-fueled weekend in Shanghai, eventually resulted in the simple yet somewhat confusing word/character we see today. And to see how, let's... Oh wait, I already did this bit, didn't I? Let's just get to it. The first character of the two is this little guy here, with the Old Chinese reading Deng or Redeng, and modern Mandarin reading Cheng, Cheng, Zheng, or Ting, depending on context. Oh yes, this is one of those characters. In the Shovan, Cheng is glossed as Zhuangye, that is, to bump, to collide, to strike, or to run into, and is composed of mu, wood, semantic, and ding, nail, phonetic. Although I think we can all see how this character also works on a purely logographic level as well. What do you do to get a nail into a plank of wood? Yeah, hit it, you dummy. Preferably with a hammer. We can't all be Minecraft Steve after all. Duan Yucai comments that the same word is written differently in various ancient sources, sometimes like this. With pu, to beat, as the semantic component, and shang, phonetic. Other times it's composed of a tishopang, a hand, and ting, pavilion, phonetic. And yet other times written like this, again with pu, but with cheng, race, as a phonetic. All of these phonetic components had similar, but far from identical Old Chinese readings. Tangs, mteng, retangs. I swear trying to vocalize reconstructed Old Chinese feels like reading from the Necronomicon. This range of similar but not quite identical phonetic elements seemed to suggest, to me at least, that these represented colloquial or dialectal varieties of the same word. Although I haven't found anyone backing me up on that conclusion, so take that with a pinch of salt. Mr. Duan also helpfully confirms that Cheng was commonly written with a tishopang like the modern character Da, which is what gives me the confidence to say, from behind the safety of my computer screen, that the modern character Da is a derivation of the older Cheng. Now, this might sound annoying, because it is, but mixing up the hand and wood radicals was a stupidly common occurrence before the printing press, and afterwards too. Because they are pretty similar to begin with, and even more so when we feature sloppy writing, faded ink, or just poor lighting into the equation. Be honest, could you tell these two apart on a moonless night? They're so alike they could have sat each other's imperial examinations and nobody would have noticed. So now we know where Da comes from, and how it came to be written the way it is, but what about the pronunciation? As I mentioned earlier, in the Book of Wei, the reading was Teng, and following regular phonetic development, we ought to end up with Deng or Ding in Mandarin. However, the colloquial reading Da already appeared in the Southern Song, and was widespread by the Ming Dynasty.
By all accounts, it doesn't make sense.
Well, to see how we arrived at the modern reading, we gotta look at the second half of the family tree. The word Ta, to flog, to whip, to chastise, read as tad in Old Chinese, is attested on bronzeware from the Zhou dynasty, written phonetically as da, to reach, to arrive, to attain. In the bronze inscriptions, as well as the oldest texts, the word is used in the sense of to wage a punitive expedition, so ta and da could very well be cognates if we imagine a semantic development that starts with to arrive at some place, then to arrive at some place for a punitive expedition, then further on from punitive expedition to flog or to whip in general. Ta would then have gotten the hand radical added to it once the two meanings drifted far enough apart. In the Shuowen, ta is written with the tishopang and is glossed as meaning to flog or to whip. Xushen also lists an ancient character, Gu Qin, that has the head of a tiger over the phonetic element instead, which might be a holdover from when the character was used to mean punitive expedition, because tigers were kind of associated with martial prowess and warriors in general. Some later clerks seem to have been a little confused as to which version to use, so they just jumbled them all together, resulting in this one with a hand, a tiger, plus da phonetic, or this one here, which has a hand wielding an encouragement stick, and da phonetic. Others yet, perhaps feeling a bit kinky, replace the hand with a letter radical gu, giving us this version. There's also a simplified version, which sorta makes sense I guess, but it's boring and this video is already pretty long, so I'ma skip over it, okay thanks. But what, I hear you ask, does any of this have to do with the word da? Well, in the Middle Ages, da and the character which would later become da, but still had a reading closer to ding, became synonymous with each other, and the simpler character ding was often used to write ta, which you may have noticed is a little bit more complex, because lazy writers exist in every time period. This frequent borrowing of one character for the other seems to have confused the way people read it, which eventually resulted in a reading that preserved the initial and tone of ding, that is, initial d, plus the third tone, but took the vowel and the lack of a final ng sound from ta. Like a baby that gets their mother's eyes and their dad's hair color kind of deal. This new colloquial reading first appeared in the Song dynasty, and by the Ming dynasty it was pretty widespread, which is why it ended up as the standard reading in Mandarin, Cantonese, and most other forms of modern Chinese. Only a few dialects of Wu and Southern Min seem to preserve the old pronunciation, though it also survives as a loanword in Vietnamese. And that's a wrap. I've seen comments on my videos for a while now asking for more actual etymological content, so I decided to give it the old college try. Let me know in the comments if this is something you guys want to see more of, or if you want me to keep it to just the character explanations. And also leave a comment below if the Chinese you speak at home preserves the old pronunciation of da. I'm super stoked and curious to see how many of you there actually are. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more Chinese etymological content, and a special, massive shout out to the honorable members of the Chinese Merchant Guild. You're all absolute legends. Until next time, scholars.